Yo, this is WSoul13 bringing you Raid Shadow Legends. Today I want to talk about the new fusion event coming up. Alright, so just, like a quick overview of how they plan the events out. What does that mean for you? What plan am I going to use, right? So here we go, right? Ready? Okay, so first we're going to take a look at the actual events. Then I'm going to look at the Fusion Champ himself, and I'll let you know what I think about him, okay? So, let's take a quick look right now, okay? News, right here. And then let's take a look at the event itself. Alright. So, it's for Roric Wyrmbane. He is a barbarian, spirit, attack champ. So right off the bat, I'm gonna link my Reddit guide into this video, but really the event, they are asking for, they are offering us Summon Rush. So the first two things you look at every time there's something like this is how much Summon Rush and how much Champ Chase do you need to do to get the fusion done, alright? So before we even talk about, is the fusion worth it, we gotta talk about how to get him in the first place, right? So Summon Rush is 20 fragments, and then Champ Chase is 15. So 20 and 15, that's 35. If you total all these fragments out, and you don't count winning actual tournaments right here, the extra 5 fragments for winning a tournament, it always totals out to 120. So 35 out of 120 doesn't seem like a big share. You're like, oh, well, I only need, 15 fragments to get 100. But when they did Versolve, they only asked for, they gave us 25 fragments total between both Summon Rush and Champ Chase, which meant that you actually only needed 5 fragments, So you could have gotten by with 1,070 points worth of summons. So the way I look at it is, I think we're going to need somewhere in the 2,000 to 3,000 range in terms of points. We'll find out this weekend how much they're asking for with this champ. The next thing you need to look at, to me, is, of course, there's the progression stuff, right? So if you're not progressed in any of these dungeons, right, any of the 4 big dungeons, it's going to be tough. It is going to be tough. So you want to be stage 11 at least in all 4 of them, right, to even stand a chance. And even so, the higher you are at certain ones, the better your chances are, I think, of completing the Fragment Fusion. Fragment Fusion is generally easier, by the way, than the Classic Fusion. Artifact, you only get the silver from your runs, and you use that for artifacts, so that's not a big deal. Artifact enhancement shouldn't be a big deal. The actual big deal for me here is Dungeon Divers events. So yeah, we need 3 and we need 20. So if you do have some extra points from your summons, right? If you've saved some of your stuff, like let's say you're like me and you saved your summons, like me. I have Versolve ready, I have Rion, Thea. I don't think Thea will make it for this one, but maybe for the next one. But yeah, I've saved some fragment summons, and I can use that during Champ Chase. This is 750 points right here. That's a lot of points, So that could allow me to skip some events. And the events I'm looking forward to skip the most is Dungeon Divers. For reals. Dungeon Divers is the hardest one to do. If you're looking to skip, I think those may be the ones to skip. So yeah, look at this. Spiders, how many points are they asking, right? 1,800. Okay, so that's not bad, right? So I'm at day 1. I'm already halfway through. So you rack up points quick. especially once you get to stage 20 dungeons. Everybody knows that. Stage 11 is minimum, I think. You know. And check this out though. Dungeon Divers runs for about an extra day over the first dungeon tournament, right? Which is spiders. But they're asking for 2,500 points, you know? So I've been doing this. Look. I already scored 900 points on my spiders. I've only scored 696 on Dungeon Divers. What does that mean? That means I need to put in more work to get these 5 fragments. Plus the points are really high, 2,500 points. Here's the other issue with Dungeon Divers. Let's say tomorrow I finish spiders, right? So what am I gonna do? What am I gonna farm from there to the end of that? I have another 2 days worth of Dungeon Divers that I have to go through, right? So what do I do then? The answer should be. So when you start using should in an argument, that means that the argument is not gonna go anywhere, right? A little persuasion trick for you guys. Well, check this out. You should be using those days off you have after you finish, let's say, spiders. I get my fragments from spiders, and I still have Dungeon Divers up. I should be using those days in campaign, farming up food. But here's the thing. Champion Training Tournament, September 9th. Alright? And then Champion Training Event, September 14th. So the next Champion Training Tournament is actually 3 days away from now. So if I finish today, I'll be missing out a day of Dungeon Divers, you know? Which is not good. It's not great, honestly. Which is why, in my opinion, I think Dungeon Divers is the one to skip. Because it's kind of the harder one to get, in my opinion. Like, it's the harder one to finish, you know? But totally up to you. If you are going to go over the 15 minimum fragments from the summon events, right? So that's just my spiel there for what to do with the event, like the plan, you know. So what about the actual champ, right? So how good is Roric Wyrmbane? Alright, so let's take a look right now. So we're going to go through the skills real quick, right? So first skill is a 2-hitter stun. Each hit can put a stun on. If you don't put the stun on, you get 15% third meter. So this allows you to keep going over and over again, right? Builds third meter, and then you get a stun. 40%, books up to 50%. It's really good. If you put Fearsome Presence on him, 55%, then you get 2 to hit. So yeah, most of the time, you're going to stun your dude, right? Probably more than half the time, you're going to stun your dude. Something probably close to like 80% probably. You're going to stun your dude. Next one. Next one is you're going to attack a target. You put the turn meter down. And then if you get it down to, is it 0? Yeah, fully depletes. So if you get it down below 0, you're going to stun. And the stun chance goes up to 100% after books. And no books needed for cooldown. So it's a 3-turn cooldown, which is pretty good. Is this a spider component? I'm not sure. It takes a lot of work to set it up. So you're going to have to kind of come in with another decreased third meter champ, because 75% is just not going to cut it for spider. And then for waves and all that, yeah, this could definitely come in handy in the waves in like Doom Tower or whatever. Alright. Faction Wars, though, Barbarians have still, so you don't really need something specifically for Faction Wars. So yeah, as far as a control champ, he's pretty good. You know, I mean, he'll be able to get you some stuns. So this is very similar to what, what's his face? Archmage Helmet does, right? So it's kind of similar. Archmage Helmet, he crits on the target and then stuns everybody else. This one is depletes target's turn meter, alright? So, you know, I don't know how good the AI is going to be for this. Hopefully it's good enough that it targets somebody with less than 75% turn meter, so you trigger the stuns, you know? So those are some of the big questions. There are definitely some big questions, and I haven't really looked at all the content creators' videos about it to answer all those questions, but yeah, these are the questions that need to be answered for sure. Now we're gonna look at Scale Breaker A3. All right, so his A3 has a port turn cooldown, can be booked down to 3. What does it do? Ignores 50% of the target's defense. That's really good. And then if you ascend it, it'll always use the skill to counterattack instead of the A1. So actually, you can choose to turn this on and off, right? Of course, you're gonna want to ascend because you're gonna want that. You're gonna want the amulet. I think amulet, is it amulet? And a banner, right? For sure, the banner. You need a banner. You need to ascend to get the banner. So, what seems to be the problem here, right? Oh yeah, I think it is just the banner to get the ascent. You gotta ascend to get the banner, I think. So, what's the problem then? What are we supposed to do here? You know, because if you're gonna build him as a control champ, when he counterattacks, he's not gonna use his A1. So, which is kind of which would have been good if you're using him as a control champ. If he does get hit, so somebody that isn't stunned hitting him, then he hits back with a stun, right? If he had counterattack, if he can proc the counterattacks, things like that. This one could potentially hit really hard. He is an attack champ. Base attack, I'm not sure what that number is, honestly, for a level 60. We'll have to take a look at. How do you take a look? I think you take a look through here. Let's take a look. There we go. So base attack is 1600. That's really high. That is a high base attack. So there is actually a champ that we're going to compare to him, right? And that champ is Inquisitor Shamel, right? I don't even know what faction Inquisitor Shamel is. But I do know he is good for Doom Tower. Here we go. Here's Inquisitor Shamel. All right. So Inquisitor Shamel, also an attack champ, ignores 25% of the target's death, ignore another 25 if targets for each buff on this champion. All right. So it goes up to 50. Okay. And then True Fear on all enemies. Okay, right. So he puts a little bit of control, but he really is there to nuke hard Doom Tower targets, right? So, why is Roric, in my opinion, kind of like the F2P low spender accessible version of Inquisitor Shamel? This Inquisitor Shamel goes from 25% to another 25-50. Roric goes straight 50. So the only question here is, how hard will Roric hit compared to Inquisitor, you know, on hard Doom Tower targets? Well, that's it. And if you can trigger the counter attack in those situations and he does hit hard, well then I think that could potentially be good. That could potentially be really good. So you're gonna have to look out for that when you look at the content creator videos, if that is a role available to Roric, right? And you know, like I said, one of the reasons why you do go for fragment fusions is because they offer you things either that has never been in the game before, like a niche thing that's never been in the game before, or kind of like a watered down version of something we already have in the game, which includes epics, by the way. It's just the way it is, right? So like Kreela, you could argue that Farrakhan the Fat is better than Kreela, you know, and Farrakhan's an epic, right? But Kreela, you don't need to pull shards. You could have fused her if you participated in the fusion event. Same exact thing with Roric, in my opinion. Gives you a chance to have an Inquisitor Shamel type champ, while also at minimum being a pretty decent control champ. So yeah, if you're a progressing player, you can use him as a control champ. He's pretty decent. If you're kind of like an end game player and you don't have Inquisitor Shamel yet, then maybe he is an option to fill that role of like a single target nuker. I'm actually not sure about that, you know. And also, he doesn't have Inquisitor Shamel's Void affinity, you know. which could have been a big deal because you don't get weak hits, right? So just some things to think about, in my opinion, right? So we'll see this weekend once they reveal the points for the summon events, and then I'll check back in with you guys to keep you updated on what I'm doing and what I think you should be doing if you're an F2P low spender. See you guys next time.